Hello again on the UK edition, and this weekend why don't we recall the great Maharaja Ranjit Singh, who became Emperor of Punjab at the age of 20, united Punjab and made it greater than ever before or since. But this weekend is a very good time to remember him because of a new book on him by a Muslim member of the House of Lords, Lord Mohammed Sheikh, given the secular legacy of Maharaja Ranjit Singh and seeing the times we live in, a timely book. Sir, what got you so interested in Maharaja Ranjit Singh?
I'd like to begin by saying that although I was born in Kenya and brought up in Uganda, my father came from Amritsar. In fact, I've traced the history of my family, and our connection with Amritsar goes back to 1892. I am a Punjabi. I speak Punjabi at home and proud to be Punjabi. And Maharaja Ranjit Singh was, of course, called Sher-e-Punjab. And he built an empire. At the age of 18, he conquered Lahore.
Sir, all that we know.
Yeah.
But it is not very usual.
Yes.
For someone whose origins would suggest that they moved to Islamic or Muslim Pakistan to then have this kind of interest in Maharaja Ranjit Singh, because this partition seems to have divided people's loyalties even about history itself.
I think you ought to bear in mind that Maharaja Ranjit Singh not only belongs to Punjab, but he belongs to the world. And I feel that he is a man who we should admire. He believed in secularism. He was truly secular man. There are two emperors in India who I have got great respect for because of secularism. One was Akbar the Great, and the second was Maharaja Ranjit Singh.
Is this sufficiently recognized on all sides?
Well, I think it is undoubtedly. Undoubtedly, if you look at India when it was created, Jawaharlal Nehru, Panditji, Mahatma Gandhi, Maulana Azad emphasized that India would be a secular state. Now,
this is a fact which we recognize, and your research no doubt confirms it. I'm not doubting the fact of the secularism. I'm asking about the extent to which that is recognized about Maharaja Ranjit Singh.
I think the question arises that if you know Punjab, then I think if you're a Punjabi, we certainly would appreciate Maharaja Ranjit Singh, because the fact is that his headquarters wasn't Amritsar. His headquarters were Lahore. And he was based in Lahore, although he used to go periodically to Amritsar. So I think people are under the misapprehension that he was based in Amritsar. No, he was based in Lahore because he conquered Lahore at the age of 18. And when he conquered Lahore, two things you got to bear in mind.
Is he sufficiently claimed by Lahore today as their own?
I think it is. I think you've got to bear in mind that, I mean, although, for example, my roots are in Amritsar and I'm a Muslim, but I think you have to bear in mind that his minister, the top minister, was Azizuddin, who was a Muslim. So one of his general, Bisam Sheikh, was a Muslim. So undoubtedly, I think people in Punjab appreciate who Maharaja Ranjit Singh is, undoubtedly. And I think if you are truly secular and if you're truly objective, then you would appreciate what Maharaja Ranjit Singh did and the greatness of the man.
Is that what drew you to research him?
No, I was fascinated. I'm fascinated by Indian history. And I was fascinated by the man because he was not only a great warrior, he was an administrator. He believed in arts. He also promoted trade. So he encompassed a truly comprehensive Maharaja. And obviously, he was a man of his word. He abolished slavery, for example. He was not very happy about sati. He believed in empowerment of women. So he's a role model, although he is gone, you know. But you have to bear in mind, he, 170 years, he was truly a model for others to follow.
There have been several books written on Maharaja Ranjit Singh. He's quite a hero of Punjab. What does your book bring out about him that is, you believe, new and significant?
Well, you have to bear in mind, everybody looks at a man in his own perspective. If you look at Winston Churchill, how many books have been written about Winston Churchill? Each author looks at it and portrays it in the way his research shows, and his own opinion of the man. And therefore, what I have done, I've researched this book very, very carefully. If you look at the book, it's got the back with bibliography. I carried the research in India. I did research in London. I looked at various publications. I spent nearly 2 weeks in Amritsar.
What is the distinctive viewpoint that you brought to this?
I think you've got to bear in mind the distinctive viewpoint is to emphasize the fact, and he was a human being as well. For example, his association with the dancing girl Moran. Yeah? So he was not only a warrior and a king, but he was a human being as well. And what I've tried to do is to mention few anecdotes in his life, basically.
Share some, please.
I'll give you one example. There was a man who had written Quran Sharif by hand, and he wanted to sell that Quran Sharif. He went to 1 or 2 Muslim Rajas, and they didn't want to buy that. So he went to the Maharaja Ranjit Singh, heard about this. So he asked this man to come and see him. And he looked at it, and because he only had one eye, so he looked at it and he enjoyed what he was reading. And he asked his minister, Azizuddin, he said, read something from the Quran Sharif. And he read from the Quran Sharif. And obviously, Maharaja Ranjit Singh said, what is written in the Guru Granth Sahib, and the fact that in the Guru Granth Sahib, you got writings of Sheikh Farid, for example, you got writing of Kabir, and of course you got to bear in mind that Guru Nanak Dev Ji's companion was Mardana. The foundation stone of the Golden Temple was laid by Mian Mir, and I believe there are more similarities between religions than differences, and you have to look at the similarities.
What did you find about his relationship with the British?
The British, you have to bear in mind, the British respected him. He met 2 Governor General. They had the Treaty of Amritsar. The Treaty of Amritsar meant that one part of the river Sutlej would be left to Maharaja Ranjit Singh. The other part would be ruled by the British. Now, during his lifetime, there was no aggravation, there was no fighting between the Maharaja Ranjit Singh and the British. But
the British didn't try to take over the Punjab that he ruled?
No, they didn't. We had the Punjab, he actually wanted to cross once or twice. He had the idea of crossing the river Sutlej.
To take over the British part of it?
Part of British part of it. But then he respected this agreement. He was a man, I believe he was a man of honor. So he respected the Treaty of Amritsar. Undoubtedly, and I think the British respected the Treaty of Amritsar. Now, you also have got to bear in mind, he was a great warrior, right? In his army, he had Mukand Chand, he had Nalwa, he had Bisham Sheikh, but he also had Europeans, Allard, Ventura, Avitab. So he had used the Europeans to do 2 things: to train his foot soldiers, artillery, and to also show them how to use guns. Because prior to that, the Sikh army used to rely very much on the cavalry. So he built a very composite army, and I think that the British would have trouble taking on the Maharaja because his army was very well trained. And disciplined as well.
His son couldn't quite follow in his footsteps.
Well,
why?
Karak Singh was a bit of a disappointment. In fact, Karak Singh and his son Nawal only ruled for a short period because Karak Singh was poisoned. Because after the Maharaja died, obviously there was turmoil, there was infighting. And Karak Singh didn't last very long, and his son also didn't last. His son, Karak Singh's son, also met with an accident.
Well, but his legacy goes beyond that little dubious legacy of his actual sons and actual inheritors. Maharaja Ranjit Singh's legacy is owned by all of Punjab. Today, that Punjab is divided. What does that legacy mean in a divided Punjab?
Well, the legacy, which undoubtedly is the fact that you have to bear in mind that during his lifetime, there was no communal violence. Yes, there was no communal violence. 80% of people in his empire were Muslims. And what he did, give you one example, what he did when he conquered Lahore at the age of 18, he let Chet Singh, who used to belong to one of these missiles, for example, he let him go. He went to 2 Muslim mosques to pray. He also appointed the qazis, which means he respected the fact that not nearly all, but majority of his subjects were Muslims. And Muslims also respected him because he respected Islam. And undoubtedly you have to bear in mind also that in his army he had Europeans, he had Hindus, he had Sikhs. And he was a great man in the sense that he was able to get all these communities living in harmony.
You, as the author, yes, see all this, you research all this, you have a viewpoint, you respect his secularism, you respect his professionalism, but you, as author today, also see this very divided Punjab. You see the hostility and hatred across this line. And now, what do you make of this present situation? Does it pain you to see this? Is this just a historical fact you accept as a matter of course?
I think you make a very interesting point, because in my book...
Please, sir. No, yeah.
In my book, I've got a paragraph to say that in 1947, there were 5 million Muslims, about 5 million Muslims and about 5 million Hindu or Sikhs crossed the border. 1 million people were killed. And I've said in my book that if Maharaja Ranjit Singh was alive today, he would have wept to see how Punjab was divided. I myself feel the division of India was wrong. I feel that partition was wrong. And I feel that the partition fueled a great deal of enmity. There are people who lived in harmony, people living next to each other. Obviously, there was a problem. And I think the division of India was wrong, but I feel that if Maharaja Ranjit Singh was alive in 1947, he would have wept, because...
That we believe would have been the case, given his beliefs, given his fondness for greater Punjab and the great Punjab as it then was. But seeing the division today, accepting it as historical fact, are there principles of secularism, are there principles or beliefs that Maharaja Ranjit Singh stood for that can still be revived and respected on both sides?
Well, certainly this is how India was created. There are 2 great things about India which I think we must appreciate. One, it's the largest democracy in the world, and secondly, it was founded on secularism. And this is something which the 3 leaders, all the leaders of India were very much emphasizing. For example, in India, you don't have a state religion. Yeah? So India, I mean, to be honest, there are some problems at the moment in India. But that is not how India was envisaged. It was envisaged not only there are Muslims, but there are Christians, there are Buddhists, there are all sorts of people. Undoubtedly. And therefore, this is how India was created, and I would like India to remain a secular state. Because that is so very, very important, where you got people of different religions.
Yes. Or the culture, the language, yes. I mean, it's much the same. And certainly, sir, Punjab on all sides needs more Punjabis such as yourself. Thank you very much for talking to us, and thank you again for bringing us this unrivaled book on Maharaja Ranjit Singh. Thank you, sir.
Yes, very much so. Thanks very much indeed.
A long time to go before commonality could take over from communality, but it's great to see people working towards that end. Quick break now, and then we'll return to some pressing problems here in the UK. Welcome back. Now, did the British people know enough what they were letting themselves in for when they voted Brexit? The more that happens in that space, the more we see that they did not and still don't.
Confrontations are building up over Brexit talks, and with the end of the holiday season, they are only expected to get harder. The UK and the EU are still disputing basics at the moment. Talks on a trade deal are still far from the negotiating table.
The assessment is very clear. There is not enough progress today to say, okay, we can go immediately into the phase 2 of the negotiations. I think
particular issues have arisen over the relationship of the Republic of Ireland, which will remain a part of the EU, and Northern Ireland, which will break away from the EU as a part of Britain.
We are looking for, with the European Parliament, as indicated in our resolution, is no hardening of this border, and a system in not only good also for the citizens, but also for those who are doing businesses. And that opens the question, where is the border then?
Ireland is in a uniquely vulnerable position as a small country that has an interwoven relationship with the United Kingdom, from a trade perspective, from a historic perspective, from a political perspective, and of course we share the responsibility of a peace process on the island of Ireland together also. And so the decision by the United Kingdom to leave the European Union has potentially an extraordinarily negative impact on Ireland and on the island of Ireland. And so that is why, in the first phase of negotiations in the context of Brexit discussions, Ireland is one of the big 3 issues that there needs to be substantial progress on before we can move on to the broader issues of trade and transition and future relationships and so on.
The negotiations have clearly hit a dead end at the very start, and despite brave words, few see early solutions ahead.
As colleagues know, at the start of these negotiations, both sides agreed that the aim was to make progress on 4 key areas: citizens' rights, financial settlement, Northern Ireland and Ireland, and broader separation issues. We've been doing just that. And I've always said, nobody's ever pretended this will be simple or easy. I've always said this negotiation will be tough, complex, and at times confrontational. So it has proved. But we must not lose sight of our overarching aim, to build a deep and special new partnership with our closest neighbours and allies, whilst also building a truly global Britain that can forge new relationships with the fastest growing economies around the world.
But disputes have arisen within the UK about what the government has always said.
The truth is that too many promises have been made about Brexit which can't be kept. The Secretary of State has just said that nobody was pretending it would be easy. Mr. Speaker, they were pretending it would be easy.
A leaked document suggests the government is planning to restrict free movement of workers between the EU and the UK. That move can have huge consequences.
Agriculture, care, leisure, not to mention the NHS, is very reliant on workers from the EU, some of them low-skilled, in fact many of them low-skilled. So we've got to think about what's going to happen to the economy and what the balance is between the political will to restrict freedom of movement and the economic reality.
The significance of this leak is the government have been caught a little bit with their trousers down, having said they're going to wait for all the evidence to come in from the reports they've commissioned on what effect migration they think has on the country. It turns out they've actually been doing rather a lot of thinking already, 82 pages worth of it, and some of it contains some pretty bold thinking.
With Sanjay, Suri in London, this is Vaibhav Verma for News 18.
We'll continue to watch that space, worrying as it is. More on that, more on the UK Indian story next weekend here on the UK edition.